Let's be honest, trying to figure out if sugar is bad for you can be totally confusing, right? One day, you read a headline that says it's basically poison, and the next day, another one says, a little bit is okay. It feels impossible to get a straight answer. But what if there was a way to finally cut through all that noise and find out the truth?
It's the question we're all asking ourselves pretty much every single day. When we're in the grocery store, when we're deciding what to eat, is sugar really the bad guy it's made out to be? Well, thankfully, we might just have a definitive answer.
So, to settle the debate once and for all, scientists decided to do something huge. They didn't want to just add another opinion to the pile. No, their goal was to look at everything, all the existing research, and piece together the real story.
To do this, they used an incredibly powerful tool called an umbrella review. And this is important, because this isn't just another study. This is the kind of investigation that's designed to be the final word on a subject.
So what in the world is an umbrella review? Okay, here's a great way to think about it. Imagine a single scientific study is like one detective working on a case. Well, an umbrella review is like the master detective who comes in, gathers the case files from every single detective in the city, spreads them all out on a giant table, and finds the one hidden pattern that solves the whole mystery. It is literally the highest level of evidence you can get.
So, just how big was this investigation? Well, the researchers started by looking at a staggering 8,601 different studies.
From that mountain of research, they drilled down to the 73 absolute best meta-analyses. And remember, each one of those is already a huge review of many individual studies.
And after all that work, what did they find? They found 45 clear, undeniable, and harmful connections between eating sugar and our health. The sheer scale of the evidence was just, well, it was overwhelming.
Okay, so what exactly were these 45 harms? Well, they weren't just random. When you look at them all together, they paint a really clear and, frankly, a pretty concerning picture of how too much sugar messes with our bodies.
And if you look at this breakdown, you can see what I mean. The biggest piece of the pie by far, 18 of those harmful links, had to do with our metabolic system. So we're talking about things like diabetes, weight gain, gout. Then right behind that, you've got 10 links to heart and cardiovascular problems, 7 to different types of cancer, and another 10 to a whole bunch of other issues.
Now, digging into all this data, one thing really jumped out at the researchers, and that was the damage caused by sugar-sweetened beverages. You know, your sodas, your sweetened teas. Because that liquid sugar hits your system so fast, without any fiber to slow it down, the effects are especially bad.
For instance, get this. The review found that having just one 250 milliliter sugary drink a day, and that's actually less than a typical can of soda, was linked to a 17% higher risk of coronary heart disease. That's a huge number for such a small daily habit.
And it wasn't just about our hearts. It turns out that having even just one sugary drink per week was linked to a 4% higher risk of developing gout, which is a really painful type of arthritis.
And this one is maybe the most sobering stat of all. That same daily sugary drink was also linked to a 4% higher risk of dying from any cause. It's a pretty stark reminder of how these little daily choices can really add up over a lifetime.
But here's the thing about good science. It's rarely a simple story. It's not just sugar is bad, end of story. And in this massive review, the researchers found something really fascinating. At first glance, it seems to completely contradict everything we've just said.
Okay, you might want to brace yourself for this one, because it's a real head-scratcher. The review confirmed what we pretty much already knew. Sugary drinks are strongly linked to a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. No surprise there. But it also found that a higher intake of sucrose, yep, that's just plain old table sugar, was linked to a slightly lower risk. Wait, what? How is that even possible?
Well, the researchers have a really solid theory. See, unlike the sugar we get from drinks, we often eat sucrose as part of a whole food. Think about the natural sugar in an apple, or in whole grain bread, or in yogurt. They believe that this so-called protective effect isn't coming from the sugar itself, but from all the good stuff that comes with it. The fiber, the vitamins, the nutrients. It just goes to show you how you eat your sugar can be just as important as how much.
So after sifting through this absolute mountain of data, with all of its twists and turns, what's the bottom line? What's the simple, actionable advice we can all take away from this?
Well, the study's authors boiled it down to 2 really clear recommendations. First, they say we should limit our intake of free sugars. That means any sugar added to food, plus the sugar in things like honey and fruit juice, to less than 25 grams a day.
To put that in perspective, that's about 6 teaspoons. And second, we should limit sugary drinks to less than 1 serving per week.
And really, the researchers' own words kinda say it all. They concluded high dietary sugar consumption is generally more harmful than beneficial for health. It really doesn't get much more direct than that.
And that leaves us with one final, really important question. This incredible review gives us the clearest picture we have ever had on sugar. The science is pretty much settled. So why is it still so incredibly hard for us to change the way we eat?